my honor and privilege to welcome you to this BW Marketing World, Marketing Whispers. Me and my senior editorial colleague, Noor Fatima Warsia, will talk to somebody we've known for more than 2 decades. He was a practitioner. He continues to be a practitioner. Earlier, he was part of large corporates. For almost the last 2 decades, he's been advising corporates, brands, companies, individuals, institutions on how to build businesses and how to build brands. Let me welcome Mr. Harish Bijoor, who's the brand guru. He's the founder of Harish Consultancy, and he has a provocative take on most things that happen around you. How does it feel in these times? How do you feel about work? How do you feel about being who you are, and how you're contributing to make sure you're able to, in some way, contribute to saving lives?
What's happened? I think the world has turned topsy-turvy. And I think work has turned topsy-turvy. Home has turned topsy-turvy. Public spaces have turned topsy-turvy. So marketing, needless to say, has to turn topsy-turvy. But I don't think marketing has turned itself topsy-turvy as yet. And that is the tough set of issues that marketeers are looking at. In fact, the title of this entire session was What's Inside the Head of the Chief Marketeer? What's inside the head of the chief marketeer? My belief, it's confusion at this point of time. Confusion confounded by the environment we are living in. And I think tough times call for tough actions, and we need to look at that and how that can be crafted.
In these times, to be able to help people who need help should be the biggest credo of every brand, every organization, every individual. What do you think brands can do to be able to be relevant and meaningful and really deeply impactful in these times?
Brands are an integral part of everything in our lives. I mean, the brand is everywhere. The brand is ubiquitous. We can't live without brands. We can't survive. We can't think. We can't move. In such an environment, I think brands assume a very big responsibility. Because at this point of time, we live in a society where people are helplessly helping everyone. And therefore, helplessness seems to be the ethos, which seems to be the dominant ethos in society. Which simply means to say that we are entering into a very sensitive phase in our society. For marketers, it typically means that, we used to live once upon a time in 2019, long ago, in an economy which was called a celebratory economy. That celebratory economy with 2019, end of 2019 and the first bit of 2020 went into the mode of being a cautious economy. So celebratory to cautious. And then the cautious economy actually went into a mode of being a fear economy. And I think we need to be careful to assess this moment, because fear to panic is a very thin dividing line. And I think marketers, brands need to get very, very sensitive at this point of time. Marketers need to buy sensitivity wherever you get it. Simply to say that, it's extremely important for marketers to earn back the credibility, lost credibility even, over the years. Because we have been shouting from the rooftops in a celebratory economy mode. Is it a time to stop shouting from the rooftop? Several marketers have taken that action. So how do you advertise? How do you market? How do you sell to an economy which is in the celebratory mode? All of us know. But all of us don't know that one big thing, how to sell, how to market, how to brand for an economy that is in a fear mode. And therefore the answer lies in the future, which is going to come by. We move from celebratory to cautious to fear, hopefully not to panic, but from fear, hopefully we will move into an economy which I would call the hope economy. And as you enter into the hope economy, it is very important for marketers to showcase hope. But when marketer actually showcases hope, it's extremely critical for him to do it with credibility. Again, lost credibility, earn it back, buy it back, get it off the shelf wherever you get it, but infuse credibility into the marketing system. The key point is that, it's extremely important. We don't want consumers at any point of time to say, look at our piece of advertising and say, oh, it's marketing. Oh, it's advertising. Oh, it's PR. Oh, it's event management. We've heard these much of the time. I think marketing needs to earn credibility back.
Over the last 5-6 years, the internet-only brands that have been built from the scratch, and they've done both well as businesses and in terms of their valuations. But in terms of their brand building, they're still very in a nascent stage. We have a transactional relationships with some of them. We don't know that we have deep relationship, whether it's food delivery services or whether it's e-commerce players. What do you have to say to the founders of these brands who built these businesses and brands over the last 5-6 years? And they grew in a economy that was growing. They grew in a digital ecosystem that was growing. In the last 16 months have given an acceleration to these digital-only brands. How do they build deep relationships with consumers? How do they build brands that really become part of the way we live?
Actually, a very good question, Anurag, because the world of marketing has gotten divided into two now. And fortunately, my company works in both spaces, and I do some hands-on stuff in both spaces. The idea is this: there is a physical business, and the physical business is the business of yore, which believes in relationships, which believes in brand building, which believes in something called a brand proposition statement, which believes in the power of an advertising proposition statement, which believes totally in building long-term relationship with consumers. The second part of the business is the new business, and this new business is the digital business. And the digital business is really talking about, a very transactional mindset. It's all about data, big data, churned out into actual sale volume. And where I sell is not important, who I sell to is not important, what I sell is not important, but the sale is more important than anything else. I think these are two mindsets. Much of the new companies that I work with, startups, particularly in food delivery space, in ticketing space, in n numbers of spaces which are virtual, I find this mindset very, very strong. The boards of these companies are populated by directors who are very money-minded, who are very transaction-minded, who are very science of selling-minded. But these boards are missing the element of the old world companies of people who believe in consumers, people who believe in consumer insight, people who believe in harnessing data from one consumer rather than millions of statistical pieces which are thrown up at you. And therefore, there is a certain long-termism which belongs to the old type of companies. And there is a very short-termism which belongs to the new wave digital company. Now, what needs to be done is, there needs to be a swap of competencies. The boards of our new companies need to get in a lot more people with a lot more passion on the consumer side of the business. And simultaneously, the boards of our older companies need to infuse in them the entire charge of a digitally enabled world which lives on data, thrives on their data, and worships data, literally.
Mr. Bijoor, your consultancy doesn't just operate in India; it has presence in the United States, in Europe, and even in the Middle East. I just want to get a sense on this set of challenges that we were just speaking about. Moving on from celebratory to caution. Right now, talking about fear, hoping it not becoming panic. Is this the similar kind of trend across markets, or is some of this very unique to India right now, which the marketers sitting in India should be more cognizant of?
Noor, if you look at it, I think the world is not flat, really. Not anymore. So Thomas Friedman, I'm sorry, the world is not flat anymore. It's pitted. it's pitted with different kinds of pits. And I actually paint 3 pits today. The world is pitted into one called the North Americas, and everything about North America, South America, Canada is one portion. And somewhere in the other pit lies Europe. And somewhere very close to Europe lies Africa. And in the third pit lies the subcontinent of India. And if you really look at differences across my client profile across these 3 types of countries and whatever work we've done in the last 18 months of the pandemic, I see differences. I see differences in Europe where there is plenty of learning which is actually plowed back into marketing and plowed back into the consumer lives. There is a longer period of time when people are thinking about, the time frame they think about is longer, and they're plowing it back. The United States is quite akin to it, but it has its own difference because there is a certain cockiness in the United States of America today that I have my Pfizer shot or my Moderna shot. And guess what? This cockiness is about saying that Biden promised them 100 million shots in the first 100 days of his tenure, and Biden actually delivered 220 million shots in those 100 days. And the United States is a 340 million population kind of a country. So shortly they'll be fully vaccinated with 2 shots. And that gives it a cocky feel. And with that cocky feel will come a certain degree of forgetfulness, of forgetting what we have been through. Because the US has been through a lot and has seen a lot of angst, which we are seeing today. The third type of country then is India. And out here, if I really look at it, I think we're going through angst. But the problem is, public memory is proverbially and really short. We go through pain, we go through turmoil, and we tend to say it is meant to be. And when we come out of it, we forget all the learnings, the good learnings of the bad times. I only hope I'm totally wrong. I only hope that when we come out of the pandemic, we're able to say that, hey, listen, it's extremely critical for us to reinvent everything around us, to re-energize, to re-engineer our life virtually all around, keeping in mind the sad learnings of the pandemic. But I suspect that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. We are still, even as the pandemic is going on, there are mechanical saws which are cutting down our trees in our big cities, in our small towns. There's no oxygen at one end for our people to breathe in our hospitals, and we're cutting down trees. This is not only about big cities, it's about villages. Villagers respect our trees, but they don't respect our air because they go and burn the crop eventually, and the crop again pollutes the air. We don't have oxygen, and my dear friends, you're burning crop. We don't have oxygen, and my dear friends, you're cutting down trees. Can you imagine what you'll do when things come back to normal? The key point I want to make is it's extremely important in the Indian economy, in the Indian business environment, and certainly for Indian brands to incorporate learning, valuable learning from these terrible pandemic times. If we do that, we would have taken one step forward. If we don't, we'll still be where we were.
Just to build on Noor's question, 2 days back in an interview to BBC and CNN, the South African president talked about vaccine apartheid. In some sense, what you said kind of, they use very different terminology and a little different context to explain that. But it has created a divide. It has created haves and have-nots in this vaccine and healthcare economy. So thank you for making that point. I just wanted to follow up on the point that you said people have a very short memory. And sometimes we don't learn from what we deal with, we suffer from. It's only very short-lived and we tend to go back to our own way. And as individuals, we can remember if we are ill, we'll follow a certain regime for a certain time. And then we'll possibly go back to not that disciplined regime. So it happened that. But this time, Harish, I feel that the impact is deeper. It has taken personal toll on a lot of people, right? And I think that will last longer, and that will change their mindset into taking better decisions for their health, better decisions in terms of who they elect, better decisions in terms of demanding accountability, hopefully focusing away from religion debates, hopefully. But let me ask you this question in terms of when you see the country, 26 of the 36 states and union territories have had a lockdown. So it's pretty much, 26 out of 36. Now, again, we've learned to live in a certain way in a lockdown with less resources, with stepping out less, doing less, where less has become more. How does this concept of less becoming more impact the consumer economy?
Okay. When I look at this question, I would say that I'm an optimist, and I really hope that we learn and we move forward. But before I get to the question, I must jump into a piece of research. We do a panel research exercise across some 16,000 plus houses in 23 different towns, including some villages, very few villages, only 23 as a sample size. And we've been doing this for the last 18 months during the pandemic and trying to see how things are changing. We are a yo-yo nation. When the pandemic is at the peak, we feel very, very positive about being good after the pandemic. But once the pandemic goes back and once life is back to normal, we tend to think that it's business as usual. This yo-yo line I've been drawing is something that worries me. But coming to the question, can we rethink and rewire our entire lives? I think we must. Because if you really look at it, in the old days, when possibly you and I were growing up, Anurag, our parents would say that, hey guys, the world is your oyster. Go out there and conquer the world. I changed that. And I recently wrote an article which says, the world is not your oyster. The oyster is your world. The oyster is your world now. And the oyster is your home now. And everything needs to be built around the home. So anything that comes into the home is the new reality. So today, EFH, everything from home is the idea. So everything from home. I entertain myself at home. I do my meetings at home. I study at home. I gym at home. My boxing bag is out there at home. I learn my sign language at home, sitting on YouTube or whatever. If you really look at it, I think everything can be done at home. So there's a restructuring of the way we do everything. How does this impact marketing? It impacts marketing terribly because the marketing is an outdoor economy. Marketing is an on-the-go economy. I've been in sales for several years. The first 8 years of my career, I spent in selling, okay? So I used to sell tea and coffee and spices and condoms in the rural markets of India. Now, that's very physical. You can't change that. Or so we think, because today I sell all those things for several companies that we work with, but we do it digitally. With the last mile delivery being physical, but everything being digital, which includes the process of creating brand awareness, creating the choice in the consumer, getting the consumer to move and make a choice to buy it, and then making the delivery happen, everything digitally. So I think it's possible. But the point is, entire marketing organizations in the country are very outdoor or on-the-go oriented. We need to now reorient these outdoor, out-of-home kind of thing into in-home kind of competencies. And several good examples come to mind. I can't speak about them because several of them are clients, but very good examples where inroads are being made, where everything is happening in-home. The most traditional way of selling is today morphing to become the most modern way of selling.
We hear a lot about structure for volatility in these times. Now, I think it was Mark Pritchard who had first said it, the P&G global brand officer, but I think a lot of people picked it up after that. When we're looking at it from a marketer standpoint, the decision makers, what does this decode to? in the office decision making? What does this boil down to?
Okay, when you look at marketing for volatility, the key point is volatility was half the time considered an aberration. It wasn't considered the norm. And therefore, every business, I do a fair bit of work in the tech businesses, and what we typically do is we have a business continuity process in tech. And since I also handle some clients in soft industries like FMCG, durables, etc., we took this bad habit of tech, call it bad habit of tech, the business continuity process into these companies as well. So today we have business continuity processes in the best of companies on both sides. Old world companies, new world companies, tech companies, non-tech companies, brick and mortar versus glass, steel and nothing companies. If you look at it, this entire thing is all about volatility, and volatility is not new. Volatility was a word which came into fashion in 1987, and this was Warren Bennis, and of course Bert Nannes who brought it in with that big four-letter word which entered our lives then, called VUCA. VUCA. Volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Okay. Now, VUCA, we live in a VUCA world. And later, in 2000, this 1987 phrase, which came from leadership strategy, was adapted and adopted into marketing. Some of the best chairmen of the best companies of the world grabbed onto this. I remember Procter & Gamble grabbing it, HUL grabbing it, Unilever worldwide grabbing it, VUCA. Now, if you look at it, I think volatility is the word which was considered to be an aberration. But today, VUCA is the norm. So when VUCA becomes the norm, we are unprepared, because the best of business continuity processes don't ever think VUCA will become the norm. And as we were just discussing, Anurag and I were just chatting on that, right? With Anurag raising the subject, I said, yes, volatility is actually the norm now. And if you look at the norm, it's this business of saying, how do you tackle it? How do you tackle volatility? We're not prepared. Marketers are typically prepared with one way of marketing, from the top, typically, in the sense that we shout from the top, we advertise from the top. But we are very seldom prepared for a bottom-up process of advertising. How do you create a brand through a bottom-up process? It's very, very labor-intensive. How do you create a brand with a top-down process? It's very money-intensive. By the way, we are partial to money because money somehow seems to come easier. Labor is hard. It sure loves labor. So most brands are built top-down. It's easier to spend a big chunk of money, advertise, promote, sell, market. Whereas building a brand bottom-up is a time process. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of labor. Can you come to that? Volatile times dictate building brands bottom-up. Volatile times signify the breakdown of top-down communication. There is a certain degree of distrust in top-down communication today, my dear friends. Certain degree. Because, in the old days, when I did a study about 4 years ago on advertising and how people look at advertising, 31% said they don't believe in advertising. Because advertising is, it is advertised, Today, I ran the same study in my panels. I told you about my panels. And the panels are restrictive size. Let's say 17,000 for this country is not a large size. Human beings. But these 17,000 plus human beings are saying that we distrust advertising 61.4%. And this is last week's data, freshly out of the oven. Fresh out of the oven. Now, that's a large number, which means to say that top-down advertising is dying on credibility norms. In volatile times, people are looking for credibility. They want the credible voice, and that credible voice is important. In volatile times, people are depending even on WhatsApp and the WhatsApp University to communicate messages. Even today, despite WhatsApp University getting such a bad name and not graduating at all. If you look at it, we are still dependent on anything that's bottom-up. And therefore, what's really happening is top-down communication is getting to be less efficient in a volatile time. And bottom-up communication, we marketers are not good at it. We haven't invested enough on it. So I think, guys, we need to invest in bottom-up communication. So my line of thinking would be, if you really ask me what the challenges are in these days, one is, of course, VUCA. And to battle it, we need bottom-up work. Everything needs to get invested in bottom-up stuff. The second is know thy brand. I keep saying know thy brand because, know thy consumer. Consumer is very important. The consumer is more important than your brand. Okay. And it's extremely critical that, brands need to think like consumers. Brands need to stay one step ahead of the consumer thinking curve all the time. There are very few brands that I can name, which I will not, but which I can name and say are good brands, which are staying ahead of consumer thinking.
But three things have happened. I've already talked to you about less is more in every way. Second, two more things that have happened is we started to question every assumption about every aspect of work, of marketing, of business, whether it's cost drivers, whether it's how we look at the metrics. So clearly, we are saying never say never. So that has both connotations of being creative, thinking out of the box. Like if 2 years back somebody told you that we'll all work out of home for long periods of time, you'd possibly not believe that. But now somebody said to you that there is a big epidemic coming, you won't believe him. But now with this, if somebody says something to us, even if it doesn't go down, at least you put a thought to us. Now that change of mindset, at least for now, I hope it stays. How does it augur in terms of the choices that consumers make, where they put money? And one big trend is that people have started to invest in their homes. Millennials have started to buy homes because they have spent more time in their home in the last 16 months than they've spent in their 25 years or 30 years or So this is one thing of never saying not possible, never say never, less is more. And last is very important is what is my purpose? I think we all have struggled with what is our purpose. We may do a job, we may run a business, but we've never deeply thought about what is our purpose. But the last few weeks may have ignited this question again. So how do you deal with this as a marketer? How do you positively build on it?
Okay. Anurag, I'll give you some stray pieces of data on this because in our panels, we have actually tried to explore new consumer philosophy. In the older days, the consumer behaved in a particular way. In the new days, the consumer is behaving in a different way. In the new days, the consumer is locked up in home and is reprioritizing. In the older days, the person who used to work would work in office and would stay away from home, compromising on relationships, compromising on attention with the people who matter the most, the people within the home, etc., etc. Now things have changed completely because today I think the concern is more for the home and less for the outside in that order, in that decreasing order of interest. And there's nothing wrong with that kind of selfishness because it is a selfish world at the end of the day. Brands, I think brands are really looking at it and saying that how has the consumer changed? Reprioritization is coming through in the manner in which what I consume, how much I consume. I've noticed one dramatic thing. During the toughest times, people are actually having a lot more time to think and enjoy what they're doing in their home. I enjoy my morning cup of coffee much, much more. There is a certain degree of mindfulness with which I drink my cup of coffee. There is a certain demand for a biscuit which has sprinkled sugar on it, which I search out or somebody in my home will search out and get for me. And I understand that I'm going to eat only 3 of those biscuits. And when I sip that coffee and eat that biscuit, I do it with great degree of mindfulness. There is a certain alert degree of consumption which is going on. So from our panels, we find this happening. People are more alert in what they're consuming. People are asking who makes this. People are asking what's the reputation of these people. And crazily, people are looking out and finding out, are these guys good-hearted people? Ouch! Whoever thought people would want to know whether that inanimate marketer At least, most consumers think marketers are robots and automatons and inanimated. How is it? How do they behave with the public? What do they do for the public? How are they involved with the public? Are they shouting from the top? Are they with us? Are they with us? Are they above us? Are they below us? Maybe tomorrow. So consumers are really asking these questions. Consumers are wanting to understand how much must I consume of something? I'm putting this toothpaste onto my toothbrush. Must I put the toothpaste on the entire set of bristles without the ting which comes at the end of it? Or can I manage with just half that quantity? And guess what? There is discovery. Half is as good as full. And what happens to that toothpaste consumption? It goes down by half. And the idea is toothpaste saved is a toothpaste earned. And in tough times, and these are really tough times. These are tough times when pay packages have changed dramatically. There are different kinds of jobs. There are kinds of jobs where you have a job, full-time, 7 days a week, into whatever number of days of the month. The second type of a job is you come to work only 3 days a week and you get paid only for those 3 days of the week. The third kind of a job is you have a job on paper, but you haven't been paid your salary for the last 8 months. And I'm not cribbing because I still have the job on hand. And the fourth kind of a job is no job. I lost my job. Hey guys, in tough times, a rupee saved is a rupee earned. And therefore, the economic value of the Indian rupee is being squeezed to the maximum today. In tough times, people are squeezing it to the maximum. There are homes. In this panel that I've gone to tier 2 towns. And, in Indore, for instance, and in Raipur, I've got data which comes out. I hope my clients are not going to jam me for talking too much data. But the point is, there's data which comes out to say that people in these homes are saying that, hey, listen, I'm going to buy less and less and less of this because it's just not okay for me to be consuming so much of this. Now, as people are either reducing consumption, people are jumping out of branded consumption into commodity consumption or quasi-brand consumption. Why must I buy this toothpaste with this mega brand? There's another brand which is, maybe 12 rupees cheaper. Let me buy that. Or maybe why not buy a dealer's own brand of a toothpaste tomorrow? So if you really look at it, there's a downgrading, these are things that people are creating for themselves within their homes. And people are wanting to save money. People in Raipur, as I was saying, they've sacked their maid and they sacked the good enabled homes have sacked their maids, their driver and the cooks. And guess what? We all thought we were all very generous people. If I ask my driver not to come for 2 months, I will still pay his salary. I will still pay my maid's salary. No, my dear friends. Reality is that when somebody does not work, they don't get paid. And I've got data on this from a large sample size. So if you really look at it, I think those people have lost incomes. And what do they do when they go back home? Are they looking for those brands? Or are they looking for substitutions? Are they looking to use less? Oh, the world is changing very, very dynamically and dramatically.
Personally for you, you've lived a full life. Personally for you, what are the changes in your thought processes and priorities that have come about, especially in the last 4 weeks?
One of the things, and Anurag, this is a very valuable question you're throwing at me. One of the things is sensitivity. Okay. Believe it or not, I was not half as sensitive as I am today. Absolutely no. What really happens to many of us, and particularly marketing people who live, by our lives running from pillar to post, we tend to think not so much. We tend to action a lot of things and we don't think enough. Now, suddenly I've started thinking a lot. Suddenly I've become a lot more sensitive. Suddenly I'm very sensitive to the environment around me. Suddenly when I look out and I see that Air Force, camp guy who's my neighbor is burning dry leaf and garbage and the air is getting polluted, I'm getting very activated. The activation mindset, the activism mindset, that's more precise, is of a different kind. I used to be an activation-minded person. Business. Possibly at any cost. Not anymore. I think, I'm very activism oriented today as well. And I think this is what businesses must do. Businesses need to buy a soul wherever you get it. And businesses were about mind and body alone. It's about how to enter into the mind of the consumer, how to dominate the body of the mind of the consumer. Businesses need to now think of the soul. It's mind, body, soul. Hang on, guys. It's soul, mind, body, in that order.
I want to draw back to some of the points you were making earlier about challenges and advice, and almost mentioned and talked about digital in that. Now, one of the things that we are seeing right now is reconcentration in the hands of the big tech. There was conversations about duopoly a couple of years ago that was more for marketing led. But today, if you look at celebrity accounts being blocked, for example, on Facebook for a comment, more of such examples are there, some of which arguably may be needed. But the fact is that the power is being concentrated in the hands of literally 4 or 5 really large companies. As we move forward from a consumer standpoint, from a business standpoint, can this be good?
Well, very frankly, I don't think this can be good. Because if you look at it, the new reality is digital is here. Digitalism is the new religion in our lives. It's an ism which you can't escape. The horse has bolted on digitalism. Many of us don't even know where our body ends and where the digital begins. There's a seamlessness that you really talk about. And in the new indoor economy, digital is manna from heaven. Because I entertain myself on everything that's OTT, I buy it on e-commerce platforms and the 20 other things that you and I do. The home-centric digital is becoming a big, big animal. And this animal is assuming power. Because the moment you are home-centric, the only thing that can reach out to you is digital. So I think this act of God event, or act of devil event, which is COVID, the disease, has actually created a challenge to the physical. It's created a challenge to the physical travel industry, the ticket booking industry, the hospitality industry, the real estate industry, except for homes, where homes will do well, but commercial space will do badly. And to print, for instance. I mean, print is in trouble overall, if you really look at it, because of the digital. If you look at it, I think, digital lives an impure existence today in our lives. And I think I state this overtly, despite the fact that I work with N numbers of digital-only companies. And I made this comment to them equally, out of sheer honesty. I think, digital lives a life which is very, very extractive in terms of data. Digital is on a data extractive mode. Digital is a give and take economy. I mean, digital gives you something free, but takes a lot more out, right? So it's a give and take digital. Whereas digital gives you 10, it takes back 46. And this 46 is an exact calculated number that I have. Digital is a syringe, which gives you through the narrow end of the syringe. Whereas, when it takes it out, it's a funnel. It's a huge funnel, not with one nozzle, but maybe 5 nozzles out. So it gives you 10, takes 46 out. And many of us are not realizing it. Privacy, for instance, in India is a non-issue. A lot of us tend to say, you talk privacy, it's at Maslow's top end of the pyramid, it's in the self-actualization phase, etc. Digital power will progressively concentrate in the big 4 of the future. And the big 4 are not the audit big 4, but these are the big 4 of the future, which is Google, which is Microsoft, which is Amazon, and which is Apple, and maybe you can add 1 or 2 others. If you look at it, I think India needs to wake up and yell about it. Because I think, it's extremely important to get digital sensitive. This country needs to get digital sensitive because digital will hijack, digital will coagulate, digital will control, and eventually digital will command. If you really look at what happened in Australia with Facebook in Australia and how a government, an entire government was brought to its knees, well, I nearly. If you really look at it, that's the future. The future is out there, painted, but none of us want to think about it most of the time.
Harish, there are questions and let us take those. There's a comment also from Jayant Bose. He says that digital marketing is also talking about customization and individual focus, hence your comment is biased. Would you like to respond to that?
Yeah, individual focus of digital is terrific because it's 1:1. Because most traditional marketing has been 1:many, 1:all. Marketers don't know how to communicate to Mrs. Arora living in Bhopal in one of the corners gullies. But I think digital knows how to communicate to that person. Digital knows a lot about that person as well because of this 10:46 kind of ratio I mentioned to you. So I think digital has its strengths, certainly. But the digital weakness will come to roost maybe only 12, 13 years later.
Absolutely. There's one more question. There are a couple of questions, but I'll take selective ones. Vikas Arya is asking how must the government utilize the digital platform effectively? And what I really mean is, I think to expand on his question, he means citizens and in the current context.
Okay, digital can be used with 1:1 sensitivity or 1:many sensitivity because that setting can be adjusted. Most of the time, as of today, when the government and whether the central government or the state governments, they use it with a 1:many kind of a facility. I think this is loss of ability to do something better. I think governments must invest in communicating 1:1 with people rather than 1:many because it's the medium. You need to use the medium as a medium. When you use mass media, you can only communicate mass. Don't take that same way of mass communication into niche media, which is 1:1 digital. And I think that's where the ability of digital is not being exploited by governments all across.
Okay. Thank you, Harish. Noor, your wrapping up comments.
It's wrapping up. Actually, I'm very grateful for all the advice that you gave. In the list of our delegates, I saw there were a lot of brand marketers and very young marketing professionals who had registered to attend this. I'm hopeful that everybody took a lot of advice on what you can take back to work and apply in your decision making. We are out of time now, so I'm just going to be grateful again to Mr. Bijoor for his time. I would like to thank Dr. Batra as well. It was a tough day for him, but he was able to join us. So thank you. Very, very grateful to all of our delegates, everybody who's watching us on Marketing World, Business World, our YouTube and Facebook channels. Thank you so much for being there over here with us, and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Noor. Thank you, Harish. We look forward to more conversations with you.